A Houston couple right now is raising awareness about infertility after waiting more than a decade to have their miracle baby. Now they're working to encourage families who may be struggling to conceive. It's a very important topic and conversation to have, and we're so fortunate to have some very special guests in the studio to take part in this conversation, to share their story today. We have Connie and David Liu. Thank you both so much for joining us. And we also have Dr. Jean-Claire Dillon, a third-year fellow at Texans Children Family Fertility Center. Thank you all for taking the time to come in to chat with us today. So Connie and David, can you tell us a little bit about your journey with infertility? Because we know this looks different for every family. It's very personal. So.
Yeah, I just want to say we're very grateful to be here this morning, and thank you for having us. Our journey, it's been over 10 years, 8 years at the Family Fertility Center. It's been a long journey with highs and lows. And fortunately, this April, it has a great conclusion to the story and a happy ending. We've done over 10 plus fertility cycles. Wow. The highs and lows, Connie's taken the medication, the injections, all the difficult procedures. And it's kind of been an emotional roller coaster, and we've really relied on a community and the Texas Children's Family Pavilion for Women, the Family Fertility Center, to guide us through this journey of starting a family.
And like David said, it's been a really long journey. You know, you go through life doing everything you're supposed to do, going to school, getting your master's degree, you know, climbing the corporate ladder. And unfortunately for women, you know, when it's time to have, we started trying immediately when we got married, and that was in 2012. And from then on, it's just been, you know, an uphill battle that people don't discuss, and there's a lot of procedures, there's a lot of medications, there's a lot of shots, there's a lot of tears, you know, but like David said, in April, we can now say, you know, it was all worth it, and our daughter was born in April. So.
You have a 2-month-old, beautiful baby girl, Blake.
Yes.
She's gorgeous. And we know, as you were saying, the process and something that's not always talked about emotionally, physically. I can imagine the toll that takes in a decade of that.
And when we first started, we had no idea how to even begin the process. We had nobody to turn to. It's just something that nobody talks about. And unfortunately, there is a stigma that society puts on it. And, you know, as we started to go through the process and talk about it, we met friends, families, acquaintances who unfortunately are all going through the same thing. So it's way more common than you think. And I think it's 1 of 6. So
yeah. It touches the lives of so many families, and that's why it's such an important conversation. And doctor, from a medical perspective, can you walk us through the IVF process? Because for many, you don't know where to begin or what this entails.
So like David and Connie kind of described, in vitro fertilization, or IVF, is a process that we utilize to help patients and their families achieve pregnancies. Essentially what we do, we remove the eggs from the woman's ovaries, and in the lab we're able to fertilize them with sperm, and then we create embryos for the eventual transfer into the uterus so that they can achieve pregnancy. The time period for stimulation of the ovaries, or those injectable medications, as David described, is usually 10 to 12 days, where there's daily injections of medications. And then throughout, there's ultrasound monitoring so that we can monitor the ovaries, so that we can see how the follicles, or where the eggs are growing within the follicles, how they're growing and how they're responding to the medication. Once we feel that most of those follicles are large enough, or the eggs are mature, as we say, we schedule an egg retrieval. And in that egg retrieval, the patient undergoes a procedure under anesthesia in the OR, and those eggs are removed, and then they're sent to the lab to be fertilized, and embryos are created, and they're either, we plan for embryo transfer at that point, or we sometimes freeze them for additional genetic testing.
Right.
So that's essentially the process in a nutshell.
And for families, how long does that process take?
So the actual IVF process, the obtaining of embryos, can take upwards of 2 weeks. but the process of like eventually transferring the embryos to the uterus can take months, just from the genetic testing standpoint, or even like the patient's readiness to be pregnant.
Certainly everyone's journey looks different.
Exactly.
I'm sure. And doctor, are there other options available for patients as well who may be dealing with infertility?
Luckily, as an infertility specialist, we have so many tools in our toolbox now to help patients create their dreams of developing or having families. It really depends on the patient's medical history and why they're unable to become pregnant. So if a patient is having trouble ovulating or releasing an egg from an ovary, we have medications to help them ovulate. There's intrauterine insemination or artificial insemination, if that's something that we think is, beneficial. For same-sex partners who are unable to, have a child, we can utilize egg, sperm donation, or even surrogacy. So there's so many different tools in our toolbox, and of course IVF when a patient does need that. And so there's and then also we have options like adoption. So there's multiple options, and luckily we have so many tools in our toolbox to help patients achieve their dreams.
Yeah, and Connie and David were just so, it's incredible. You have this beautiful baby, 2 months old baby Blake, but we know that it was a long process to get there, physically, emotionally. As a couple, I'm sure that was a lot to go through. What do you wish, that someone would have told you, or something that you would tell others who may be preparing to embark on this journey?
I'll let you start on this one.
Yeah, so what we wish, going back in hindsight, is that it was a very isolating experience, and we wish that we had the information available to us. So something that I would go back and I'd tell somebody is start early, start a conversation with somebody, reach out to a friend, join an online community. A lot of them are anonymous. Speak to a provider, your primary care physician or family fertility center. And I think if you start that conversation early, it gets the ball moving to find what's best for your family.
And I often get asked the question you just asked, and for women, I always say, look into freezing your eggs. And I wish somebody had told me that. And don't just do it once. And again, go talk to somebody that specializes in it. But that's my advice is, definitely look into something like that and ask questions, ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
So
very important and helpful perspective for families out there who may be going through this or may not know it and will be, going through that. And from a medical perspective, what would you tell families or couples or individuals who think, we may need some help, we need assistance and guidance?
I would reiterate what David and Connie said, start early. So I think one of the basic things you can do is talk to your OBGYN. They're a great resource, especially telling them your plans for pregnancy, when you would like to conceive, how many children you would like to have, and if you're having any issues, definitely being proactive and asking for a referral to an infertility specialist, because again, that expertise and that counseling on when you should start any type of procedure, or even if it's indicated, is something that we can go in depth and talk about, even if it's just a consultation. We would prefer you have the information as early as possible.
Right, and I know for me, a lot of times, you're nervous to talk to a doctor or to vocalize what you need, but really it's about starting those conversations early, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, this is such an important conversation. We are so grateful that you are all here to share your perspective on this. And those photos of beautiful baby Blake, we're just so happy for you all as well. So thank you so much.